You joined us in the focus group, if I recall correctly. Jackie, delighted to be able to make it. Malcolm, we got here, got Mark Fritz. Welcome, Mark. Nigel Davies, lovely. Glad you've been able to join us. Peter, we've got Red, I can't pronounce your name, I'm really sorry. Is Red my RG. So I'm not sure whether that's an abbreviated name. And then we got Tim with us as well. So let's see where I've missed anyone else along the way. So I take it everyone can hear audio okay, and also see this, well, see me and see the other guests as well. If you could just type in the chat window and just confirm, please, that'd be great. Someone could just confirm they can see the screen okay and also audio, that'd be perfect. And I can see we've got a few others logging in now as we speak. Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Mark. That's good. Andrew, you've joined us as well. Trying to see anyone else we've missed out. Louise, welcome. Malcolm, I think I've said hello to you. And we've got Tim as well. Lovely. So great. What's just the format for today? What I'd like to do is first of all introduce you to Chris Cooper. Chris has I've known each other for 2 or 3 years now, and he's been a very good client of ours, and equally the other way around, and been on his show a couple of times, which has been great fun. Michael Rumling, who's actually our main speaker today, or guest today. Michael and I have known each other for about 4 years, is it right, Michael? In total?
Yeah, about 4 years, yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a lovely experience, a great experience.
Seems longer, yes?
Yeah, it does. Right, lovely. And we've got Muriel in the background. So Muriel, you may not be able to see Muriel, but she's actually just helping us to monitor the chat with Chris in case we miss anything. As a matter of interest, just a question for you guys on the call today. Can you see the chat? We've enabled chat, so basically panelists and attendees should be able to see it. But can you see the chat? Andrew, you think you've confirmed yes? Good, lovely, good, that's great. It's working this week, that's perfect. We are supposed to be streaming over Facebook Live and also YouTube. For technical reasons, it's not happening. We will rebroadcast that after today anyway, so people don't need to lose out. So I think without further ado, we'll perhaps get started. So let me just share my screen for a moment or two so I can introduce people properly. So wait a second. Right, there we go. So basically what Michael's going to cover today is how to take on the reptilian part of your brain and win. And these are the main points that are going to be covered as far as today is concerned. So it's understanding managing the reptilian mindset, tactics used to break away from the reptilian brain, how to reward yourself for small victories, how to use decoys to break free and take back control, and tactics used for encouraging our clients to also manage their reptilian brain as part of it. So there are ourselves here today. So Chris, in a moment, I'll ask you to introduce yourself, and also Michael. And there is a highlight of some of the topics we're going to cover. So I'll go back so you can see us all again. So Chris, would you like to give us a little bit of introduction into yourself for a moment, if that's okay?
Hi there. Yeah, lovely to see you all today. And my work is I set up a business which is Chris Cooper Business Elevation, and what we do is we help leaders to develop themselves, to develop their people, and to build really engaged workforces. My background was a corporate one with companies like Mars and United Biscuits and Punch to board level. I set up a consultancy, grew it to a few £1 million, and sold my share about 15 years ago. So as I wasn't seeing my wife and family, so I decided to focus on people, which is my passion. I co-authored a book called The Power to Get Things Done, whether you feel like it or not, which is sneakily on the shelf behind me, and was published by Penguin Random House, New York. And I host a radio show. I've done that for 9 years on Voice America. So we have a show called the Business Elevation Show, which is accessed in over 50 countries every month, and which I'm very proud to do, and has introduced me to people like Rupert over the years. So we've become friends partly as a consequence. So nice to see you all today.
Lovely, thanks, Chris. I will have to say that I think we were having this conversation earlier on, Michael, today, where we ended Chris last week. But a lot of the people have got to meet, not surprisingly, through LinkedIn. So Chris, you and I had a conversation on LinkedIn about 2 or 3 years ago, didn't we?
Well, we did, and what was fascinating, I don't know if people here have I'm sure you've experienced via LinkedIn getting all sorts of communication that come through to you, and people trying to sell products and services and wanting to connect with you. And sometimes they're quite authentic, sometimes they're completely inauthentic. I had one the other day that was getting angry with me because I hadn't responded to their offer of SEO support. But what Rupert did was sent some communication to me, and it was so beautifully worded that I had the first time I ever had a conversation with somebody unsolicited about a product or service. I decided to do that with Rupert because it intrigued me, actually. Yeah, it engaged me, which is what I'm about, really, about engagement. So, yeah, and it all went from there.
Lovely, thank you, Chris. And Michael, it was a very similar thing, but about 2 years earlier, really, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
And we had a great meeting, a great coffee and brand exchange in London, I seem to remember.
I thought you said a brandy there, yes?
Yeah, no, exactly. I can see, Michael, I'm going to come back to you in just a second. I just want to welcome a few more guests that have just joined us as well. Frank, I think I've welcomed you already, but if not, welcome. Ivan, hopefully Muriel's be able to answer your question for you. Wait a second. Mike Shepherd, nice to see you on the call again today. Michael, I know that Muriel's been trying to get in touch because I think we're trying to get a call booked in together. Peter, welcome. Pradeep, absolutely delighted to be able to join us again today. Raymond, lovely to see you on the call. And Terry, lovely. Okay, and Tim, I think we said hello earlier on. Great. So, Michael, if an introduction for yourself would be great, please.
How can I follow Chris? That's a big one. Michael Romney, hi guys. Lovely to be invited, Rupert. Thank you. And hope I can add some value today. I'm a strategic behavioralist, been doing for about 30 years, built an international business, sold it out about 10 years ago, and took time off to have cancer and recover from that. So yeah, and here I am, still here, which is great news. I always thought that the behavioralist side, without the strategic input, was the cart without the horse. So spent quite a bit of time looking at how companies could and individuals could develop good strategies as well as good behaviors. Love the psychology of the mind, the mindset, and have spent the last 10 years traveling internationally right across the world looking at how we can improve performance. Last major thing I did was teach Mr. Putin how to play golf. And from somebody who doesn't play golf, that's myself, and he's quite a good golfer. He was quite amazed that he didn't shoot me. So I got to get out of the country and go back again. That's quite intriguing. So yes, I do teach people to play golf, and I've never hit a golf ball in my life. And so that's the type of psychology. I'm fascinated and very curious about how people can outperform without a massive amount of knowledge. So it's a subject matter I'm learning day in and day out, but for the last 15 years become a little bit of a guru on it. So I hope you'll enjoy some of the small ditties I've got to share today.
Thank you, Mike. That's lovely. A question I'm trying to ask is, Putin didn't ask you to ride bareback on horse by any chance, did he?
No, I had to bare my chest and hold a shotgun.
Oh, right.
The horse was only for him.
Oh, that's so funny. I love it. That's quite something, honestly. Who can say they've actually played golf with Putin? My God, that's amazing. Renato, I actually understand.
And not get shot.
Sorry?
And not get shot.
No, not get shot. No, exactly. Not exactly. Renato, welcome. I now know your pseudonym, so I'm very impressed. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so I think Michael is in a moment. It's just going to be over to you. For everyone who's joined us today, we've got about 20 people who've joined us today, which is fantastic. What I would be really good, can encourage you to do is, as things come up, don't wait till the end. Just ask questions as much as you want. Very much encourage that. Also, if any of you got any really good stories, if Michael or Chris has shared something that's really interesting and you would like to pick up on it and make a particular point, or you've got a great story to share, then please just type away in the chat, really engage, because we want this to be very, very proactive. Last week, it was so successful. What actually happened, we invited 2 of the people in the chat. whether they'd actually like to contribute. So they actually came on air with us as part of this session together. So if you have got something very valuable to share and you're happy to do that, don't feel there's any need to do that, because we're very happy to engage through chat and through answering those questions that way. But if you would like to volunteer to say something or to share something, do this, because we do want it to be a very dynamic, fun session together. So no pressure, Michael, but the floor is yours now. No doubt either Chris, myself, or Mira will interject at different points, different questions or different feedback from different things that people are saying. So over to you.
Fantastic. Okay. So hi guys. Obviously with the coronavirus and the challenges and the crisis that's going on at the moment, there's a lot of people out there whom are retrenching into what I call the reptilian brain. Part of the brain mechanism from sort of Neanderthal man time, which allows us to survive really. And but it does thrive off fear. It is driven with anxiety, because as human beings, we need to be in control. We need to understand from that point of view exactly where we're going, when we're likely to arrive. And if you take that away from the average human being, it becomes pretty anxious. They become pretty anxious and pretty concerned. So I think we'd all agree we're in pretty unusual times. So one of the things that I decided to do straight away was the first week was pretty frantic for everyone, trying to figure out how on earth we could survive working from home, notwithstanding the production companies and people out there and postmen and what have you, who still had license to thrill and get on with it. But for the majority of us, it was getting used to the four walls and the view of the washing line or other that you've got out there. And really coming to terms with this anxiety and fear, because we just didn't know what was going to happen, how long this was going to go on. The reality is that I'd written a couple of blogs about abnormal normal. So this is completely abnormal at the moment, but the quicker we can make it normal, the better. And so I've been looking at how the reptilian brain can be conquered. We talk about chasing the dragon, or chasing down the dragon, as it were, trying to find ways of being more comfortable with working with a completely different mindset. So I've been testing all my theories, all my processes out with my clients, because in the first 2 weeks, my clients are saying, yes, Michael, that's fine. I love it. Great idea. However, don't you realize we're in a crisis? And then from there, that went into, but we're very chaotic. In fact, I've just spent a bit of time today with some Americans and some Indians and some British people, asking some very searching questions. For those who are at home, are you too busy? And that was, it was sort of challenged back with, well, Michael, we're in this crisis again. Of course we're busy. I said, but what are you busy doing? You're busy phoning people, you're phoning your teams, you're trying to motivate and drive people. And my principle behind this was that we need to be very, very careful that we're not just busy fools. And the other thing that was coming out dramatically for me was that, were there new tools out there? Were people treating their sales teams and their teams across the board with motivational talks, Zoom talks, and team talks? Apologies about that. Or best laid plans, or were they, for that matter, developing brand new tools? Were they coming up with new methods of managing this reptilian brain? So I've been starting conversations. I love storytelling. Storytelling to me is a great way of bonding with people, a great way of connecting from a sales process. And therefore, I've started using those principles. And the second one I talked about to all my clients recently is the Stockdale principle. And for those who don't know it, Stockdale was a Vietnam veteran. He's now an admiral, and was an admiral before he retired. And from 1985 to 1973, he was incarcerated in and out of a cage in the Viet Cong River, where the rats and the snakes would eat people virtually alive 24/7. And he got out, and many of his colleagues didn't. And he was asked what, if anything, was relevant in terms of getting out. And he said there were three clear things that made him survive. And the first one was that he faced up to reality. The second one was that he had a belief, a positive belief, that things would actually change. But the third and most important thing he said was he didn't put any time scale on it. He treated the here and now. And when asked about the third one specifically, what was the relevance of that, he actually stated that he watched a lot of his colleagues say, well, we'll be out by Christmas, or we'll be out by my wife's anniversary, or so and so. And he watched their mental state, their mindset completely fall off. Now, my job as a strategic behavioralist is to give people tools, mindset tools, to conquer anything, whether you're climbing Everest. I remember Bear Grylls was asked what was the toughest part of his climb at 19 years of age on Everest, and he stated that the answer to that was making the decision to go. So I think mindset really plays a massive and important part in this so-called crisis, and turning the crisis into a form of normality, because we're talking about 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, who knows? And in fact, at this precise moment, all we can deal with it in terms of Stockdale principle is deal with the reality of today and accept it for what it actually is.
Yeah, I love it. And just on those couple of points, Michael, I think it's really interesting. There's been a lot of debate about the lockdown, hasn't there? And people are almost craving for it to finish as soon as it started. And it's a really good analogy with that, isn't it? And also mind over body as well. Chris, you've got something to share a bit earlier on, haven't you, about your feats you did last year with was it the 4-peak challenge? Did you want to just touch on that briefly for a second, just to follow on from Michael on that point?
Yes, sure. I'm just noticing one or two people not hearing, actually. I think Eric's mentioned that the 3 points, Eric, I think were understanding reality of the situation.
Yes. Facing reality, yes.
I'll type them into the box, facing reality. And the second one was no timescale.
Belief in change.
Belief in change. Belief in change. And what was the third one?
No timescale. No
timescale. Okay.
Yeah, that's really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, I've just been having my youngest son, who's 10, read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And Viktor Frankl was incarcerated in the Second World War, and that was his finding as well, was those people who wanted to be out by Christmas and expected it, they perished. And he sort of lived in the now. But I guess if you live in the now, but also have a perspective that one day, if you can survive it, this will be over, whenever that may be. That's maybe is helpful. I'm not quite sure, Rupert, the point related to this around my quadrathlon. I mean,
I think the angle I was coming from there was because we talked about mind over body, as it were, was the endurance you went through last year to actually achieve what you did. Chris, being a very humble person, probably may not want to say too much about it, but I was amazed by your achievement you did with a friend of yours, Mike, last year in Scotland, not too far from where Michael lives, another Mike lives. But I just thought it tied in really nicely with that story, because that really was one of mind over body, wasn't it, in terms of your achievements with that?
Yeah, well, I mean, just to explain what I did, it's a little bit of a midlife crisis, or according to my wife, but I came on this idea of competing in one of Scotland's toughest, if not the toughest, one-day endurance event. And it was with a friend I got to know through my radio interviews called David Fox Pitt, who has raised 40 million for charity through his events in Scotland and puts on some amazing events. And I decided to compete in a quadrathlon on Loch Tay. And this required me to swim for a mile over Loch Tay at dawn, then run over 15 miles over 7 mountains that were all on rows over 1,000 meters, then a 7-mile kayak and a hilly 36-mile bike ride for charity. And I think for me, I could only swim for about half a length of front crawl. So the thought of swimming a mile over lock was pretty terrifying. But I had between October to July to train for this. So I think my mind over matter, one of the things that really helped me actually was I asked a previous competitor who come third, what was the one tip that you could give me to enable me to achieve this? And he said to me, he said, Chris, I'll give you one tip, and it's this. If you train consistently, pretty much every day between now and July, it will be the best day of your life. If you don't, it'll be the worst. And every morning when I couldn't be bothered, I was thinking, oh, can I bother to go to the swimming pool? Shall I run or cycle today? Or, we've got to go and kayak. Or what I did was I reminded myself, and that got me up every morning and then enabled me to get better and better. And by the time, I think the most I've swum was about 3 kilometers now. It enabled me to build myself up to a level where I could compete in that. And the key aim was to raise lots of money for charity, which we did. So that was...
well done. Well done.
That's fantastic. And over to Michael again, really. I just thought it so much underpinned your story, because it is really about dealing with that inner part in your mind again, isn't it? Which plays tricks on you. That Stockdale principle is great. So Michael, back over to you again.
Well, that's, I mean, Chris, that's fantastic. But, there's another interesting point. If you look at business as bringing back and taking your point of if we don't do the daily stuff now, in 3, when we come to the day, it's going to fail, or it's not going to be valuable. Excuse me. One of the things I'm saying to people at the moment is we need to adopt different strategies daily now, because the danger is we can survive the 3 months potentially financially, emotionally, but we'll come out after 3, 4, 5, 6 months with businesses which are not fit for purpose. Our client's mindset will have moved on, and we need to do quite a good amount of work now. And that's not just recycling the same old, same old. We need to do something now which is engaging with our clients. And the second thing you were talking about there, Chris, was interesting, was the other part is sharing and understanding vulnerability as part of this journey. And it's an interesting process. If you look at people in the special forces, if they're ever taken into an incarceration point of interrogation, they're actually told to don't be frightened of screaming and shouting and crying and what have you, because the torture or whatever they're likely to do to you, believe it or not, will be somewhat more acceptable and less. Now, I've never been in that situation, so thankfully, but vulnerability is a key part. We did a race to the South Pole many, many years ago with Inside Out, where we were using the mindset psychology, and we had 3 highly qualified people to do the race. We were racing against the rest of the world. And our team got there 24 hours before the rest, technically won the race, but one of our participants of 3 had to be medevaced out. And he had septicemia set in 24 hours before the end, and he was medevaced out. And we were all fuming because we were disqualified. And we put 3 years hard work, hard mental training, hard physical training, everything into it. And when asked why he didn't tell the team that he was suffering, he said he didn't want to let them down, but of course he did just exactly that. So during this crisis period, we need to understand the importance of vulnerability and face up to it, accept it, understand it. So psychological mindset for me, understanding how to prepare ourselves every day to go into battle. I've told a lot of my clients that we want to cut down our working day, but make it more effective. We want to give ourselves more breaks. We want to take more time off. I now just don't work Fridays to have a long weekend. And I find productivity-wise, coming out on a Monday refreshed with new ideas and thoughts because I'm doing the garden or doing whatever else I want to do. So we really need to take care that we are looking after ourselves, that we're understanding our own vulnerabilities, and that we're preparing now to repair the broken bits of our business so we can come back out in whatever time scale, but we have to accept the now of today. And it's a principle, the now principle, it's the Buddhist principle where we center ourselves. This isn't getting any better today. This is our reality today. And by accepting that and squaring up to it with all its vulnerabilities, we can be very honest. And as Stockdale says, we're actually facing the reality, but we're not going to lie down. We're going to decide, what do we need to do differently? What are the skills we need? What are the techniques we need to adopt? Yeah, and how do I keep my mindset 100% for maybe an hour at a time? Go and have a coffee, pinch the biscuit tin, or do whatever. One of my clients said he's eating more biscuits now, but he's feeling happy. So there we are. So maybe it's all about the quality of biscuits we have as part of the mindset change. So any questions, anything on that anyone would like to ask at the moment?
Chris, is it Andrew, you've asked a question there, I believe. Is it accepted that the now of today, how to translate that to a client? Is that a question there, Andrew? I don't know whether you can elaborate a little bit more on that as a point. Well, you're just, yes, right, okay.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Yes, I do. I think, Andrew, thank you for that. Sorry, do you want me to continue with that? I've got it. No worries. Is that okay?
Yeah, it might be quite nice just for the benefit of others. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes. One of the challenges I'm finding is it's okay with existing clients to a certain extent, but looking to develop new clients over the next few months, and we'll pop existing ones in here. There is a mindset at the moment just to hold everything until we get everything sorted out. Perfectionism is the real killer in this transition period. We have to move fast. We have to move quickly. We have to move quickly. And I think the important thing here is we have to have a strategy, which I call the now strategy, to actually convince our clients that it's not about what we're going to do for them in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, or what they're going to consider changing in 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months. It's actually looking at it now, and it ties back into the time element, because there are a lot of people at the moment where they've got more time in their hands than they care to imagine. And we should be utilizing that time and people. That's all we've got at the moment. And therefore, convincing our clients through a careful strategy that they need to do something now is ultimately very important. Yeah. Hence the now.
Yeah, it's if I could just pick up on that for a second as well, actually, one of the things that probably everyone on this course today has probably noticed is that we've sort of shifted our approach a little bit in the last few weeks, because I think the first thing we recognise is it's so important that we're actually out there supporting other people. So, and you know, we're trying to go through all our past connections and past conversations we've had. Both myself, Muriel, and Sam have been trying to speak to lots of people, having those conversations. What seems to be really interesting is, to bear out what Michael's saying here, is that a lot of people are going quite inwards. So the example I would give of that, and it's a very typical thing of actually a lot of coaches, trainers in particular, because by nature, we tend to be very giving people. We like to make a difference. And what happens is, in effect, the reptilian part of the brain tells us we need to go to safety. And safety is the part we feel most comfortable doing, or what feel most chilled doing. So you'll get phrases come back like, oh, there's no point doing anything at the moment. I'll do a bit of product development, or I'll perhaps write 1 or 2 articles, or I'll do something else. Anything but speak to potential clients. Or to engage with others. And in reality, it really is about looking outwards rather than inwards, and looking at, even if you don't feel it's the right time to approach people from a sales perspective, then it's all about sharing value, seeing whether people could help and support, and engaging those conversations, showing that you care. Because what the thing that will happen is that people remember how you made them feel at those times. And you know, this is the whole reason we're doing these weekly live streams now, is we want to look outwards all the time and be there to support people and help them as best as we can. Obviously, Michael and Chris have given their time a lot through. You're here today, for example, because we want to make a difference. And that's very much something I would encourage, is rather than looking inwards, this is an easy thing to do, actually look outwards and see what difference you can make. Chris, I think Michael's made a point there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has. Yeah, Michael said that at Elotech, we're holding fortnightly meetings attended by all staff called Corona Counterattack.
Oh, I love it.
Focused on what we can do more than what we can do differently to ensure that we stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, love it.
That's good. That is good.
It's really good.
Yeah. One thing I don't know for people who are maybe involved in development of people, one of the areas that I'm starting to help clients with, because I found that clients initially, they were all very concerned about obviously moving their IT systems external, moving people out externally, furloughing people. And I'm now starting to, now that's happened, so there's a bit of a hiatus. So I had a couple of weeks where I had a very interesting calendar and suddenly it just disappeared. And I felt slightly frustrated because I wanted to help people through this transition, but now they're coming back for help. And some of the conversations, some things I'm doing is actually with some furloughed staff, for example, who are out there unable to work. Actually, it's a nice time. Some of those people are feeling really quite uncomfortable because they employ me and that sort of thing. A good time maybe to help them in terms of coaching and support, because the companies do ultimately, with most of them, want them back. So there's an opportunity there where that can help. Where some people are maybe struggling with managing things remotely. We can help with that and how to do it well. So I'm starting to see new opportunities, and it's just requiring a new sort of shift from maybe some of the components I focused on before to just adjust and provide them with help in other areas, resilience, those sorts of things, which, so just shifting my model a little bit. And also the other thing is just being very willing, I think, with those clients to be generous and, to chip in and roll your sleeves up to help them at the moment, whether you're paid for it or not, if I'm honest, because I think they will remember that when the chips are down.
Very much so.
Yeah, no, I think it's important. Michael, that's Michael from Elotech. We've got Michael, of course, who's here today. Michael, could you just think about what you just said there for a moment and just put it in the chat in a moment, but it may be quite nice in perhaps 10 or 15 minutes to open up the mic and give you a chance to contribute, if that's okay, because I'd quite like to get a bit of an understanding as to some of the principles you've learned very much within Elotech, and how you've perhaps been able to tame the dragon to a degree as part of what you're doing internally in your organization. Would you be okay to do that if we involved you in about 10 minutes? If you could just type that in the chat, just yes or no, and then we'll see what we can do. Ideally, if you've got a camera enabled, that'd be even better. So I think we got an okay there, which is great. By the way, I saw one comment a bit earlier on about someone having trouble with sound. I'm not aware of anyone else having any challenges. If you do get a problem like that, one suggestion I would have is stay connected to Zoom, because at least that way you can see everyone. But you should also have got the option to actually dial in as well. So you can just dial in on your phone, but still stay connected, and that way you can get around any audio problems you've potentially got. So Michael, sorry to interrupt you, but I think some great points were made there actually. So can we come back to you and dying to hear?
Yeah, no, I think fabulous points, and I'm really interested in hearing the points the gentleman was talking about there. I think this is a time also of curiosity. And yes, we need to help people, but we need to be curious. And I was curious, to my own point of view, was how effective I was likely to be in a day with a completely new change process. I wanted to see whether the reptilian brain was conquering me. So I actually started keeping a timesheet. And it was a very simple thing. When I was productive, on hours and minutes, I would give myself a tick. And in the first week, it was horrendous. I spent more time thinking about what ifs. I spent more time shuffling paper. And I realized at the end of that first week, which is why I really started to think very closely about the reptilian brain and chase down the dragon, that I believed I was working hard, but in actual fact, I was shuffling. and I was shuffling stuff around my brain at an immense rate, but I was going further and further down. And then I realized I needed to look at curiosity. What were my clients actually experiencing? What did they require? And I tried to get into their mindset. And then started to look at the emotional buying process. And taking Chris's point there, once I started to appreciate what their needs were, and once I started to think the way they were thinking, then I could tailor my proposition to them and become very, very creative. I could become part of their team remotely. And an example of that would be in a sales team where I started my open challenge, and I would do in a face-to-face session, asking what were the different strategies. And what I found was that I was adding to the reptilian brain of the sales director, who was trying to say, yes, you don't understand, and yes, I'm doing this. But when I challenged him in a completely different way and said, look, I'm here as a resource and it's complementary, and what we do about this for the time being, he surrendered, and the buying process of come on in, let's get engaged, what can you do, through curiosity changed immensely. That also changed my mindset and stopped me being hijacked by the reptilian brain. And I noticed in week 2, my score sheet was going up quite significantly. And also I was being more honest as well. The biscuits started to go down, the creativity started to go up, and I felt quite good about this. And in fact, I'm not even sure I'm going to go back to the old ways. Who needs to sit on a plane? I'm quite enjoying the view. However, I have also doubled my performance target this year, which is absolutely bizarre. Yeah, it's crazy. But I found the more crazy I am these days, and the crazier I am with my clients, the better things are working out. Now, maybe that's what I call a decoy. So when I take people to play golf who've never played golf, I basically teach them how to play golf by teaching them how to swear out loud and miss the golf ball. It sounds strange, but it just works. So sometimes we call it a decoy. Sometimes we have to decoy ourselves to do the most stupid things. And I remember a famous golfer saying, you know, sometimes the wilder I am, the better I become, the more I practice, the luckier I become, and so on and so forth. Sometimes what we're focusing on can detract us. So it's quite nice to have a tactic to slay the dragon, to actually give yourself this decoy. And that decoy can come in many shapes or forms. Even having a cup of coffee and a couple of biscuits, which you're not allowed to have, especially not as a diabetic, you can find yourself smiling and laughing and taking a bit of fun with yourself. So it really is a lot of psychological techniques.
Wow, that's seriously interesting. The use of decoys as well. So I have to be very careful, actually, because I don't know if anyone else is like this, but when you are working from home, you know, you feel at stages you just have to move around or have to do something different. And that biscuit tin is too much, too tempting, I must admit. So, Chris, I'd imagine you're far too disciplined to even entertain it.
Exactly.
I have a challenge, Rupert. I do suddenly sometimes find myself at the biscuit cupboard and not even know how I got there. I just, you know, what we've done actually, we've currently got no biscuits now in the house. We've got no crisps, no snacks. They've all gone, and I've had to tell that because I know I'm going to eat them. I've had to tell the children, unfortunately, that there's a shortage of crisps at the moment to try and. They don't believe it.
That's psychological cruelty.
As it's Easter, we may have to renege, I think. But yeah, it is a challenge.
Yeah. Fortunately, social services are probably too busy at the moment to worry about that one, Chris. So mental torture.
Absolutely.
Oh dear, oh dear. Yeah, so that was a lovely point, Michael. So what next as far as dealing with the reptilian brain is concerned?
Well, once we get to know that we are susceptible to the reptilian brain every day, and we have that vulnerability, and we can accept that there are days where we're going to have good days and bad days. And by the way, whatever we're doing for ourselves, we should be doing with our clients. We should be talking to them like this. We should be encouraging them to be humans, human beings, not human doings. And therefore, everything we talk about today, everything I do with myself, I want to share with my clients. After all, you know, this is a human experiment. And therefore, we need honesty, we need openness, we need vulnerability, we need integrity, and we need good communication. So not being too hard on yourself and accepting, you know, my partner says, "That's a good day." And I say, "No, it was rubbish." And then she says, "Well, how many good bits were there?" And when you start going through the day, you get these small wins, which add up quite significantly during the day. It's a different type of day than we normally have, maybe with big wins, but rejoicing in small wins is really important. But again, I come back to the big challenge here is delay at your peril. We need to look at the reality of what's going on. We need to find new strategies now for developing people who are frontline, who would normally jump in a plane, a car, a train, or whatever, like myself, and would feel very comfortable. There must be, and I'd be interested to get some feedback, guys, from the chat, is delaying tactics. People out there just waiting, it will be better next week, everyone will be better moods after the bank holiday, or we'll get back to normality. And I think we're delusional if we believe that in the next few months that things are going to change. It is the now. And I'd be fascinated to see if anyone else is suffering from, I'll leave that today. I won't touch that client because they don't quite know me yet, and I will eventually get face to face. Now, I went through that in the first week. I've got to be very truthful. And then I banned myself, no biscuits, if I continue with that philosophy. And now I'm having lots of biscuits and lots of new prospects. And it seems a good trade-off from where I am. Fat versus functional. So, yeah, I'd be interested to know how other people are getting through this, because it is a mindset issue. I've got, again, happy to talk about it, some tactics which I would use, but open to, is anyone else suffering from the same?
I think Pradeep, you've just made a comment, haven't you? So delaying by distracting ourselves, reaching out to the biscuits is a good example. Yes, 100%. So thank you very much for that, Pradeep. So Michael, what are the solutions? What solutions would you suggest around this? I know that we've got sort of small victories, rewarding yourself for small victories. Is that literally the biscuit tin? What else could be small victories that you could get out of this?
Well, let me just come back one, if I may, before we do the small victories. To get small victories, we've got to JDFI. We've actually got to force ourselves into a strategy of doing things that are not quite normal. Now, if I come to Chris here, Chris, when you first jumped into Loch Tay, I would imagine an inland loch, the temperature was probably about 4 degrees if you were lucky. Did you plunge straight in, or did you walk in toe by toe?
The first time I did it, which was in April last year, early May, sorry, it was about 9 degrees, something like that, and it was so cold. So I slowly got in, but it was, I couldn't breathe actually. I just struggled for breath when I got in, but I went in slowly. What I did do though is it so scared me that I had cold showers then between May and July, and it was actually warmer in July, and I was not cold. So, but it scared me. Yeah.
And that's why most people drown in cold water, is because of the gasping effect.
Yeah.
Now, how does that revert back into our business world? So to answer Rupert's question there, I think you have to reward yourself for small victories, but you need to plunge straight in. If you find yourself second talking yourself out, should I really phone this person? What am I going to say? Just do it. Then go to the biscuit tin, give yourself a biscuit, or go for a walk, or do whatever. But it is really important that we have that internal discipline, and we help others to have the discipline to have a list of people that you're frightened to call, and we call it China egg smashing. We love to have lots and lots of little china eggs on our mantle shelf saying, one day that'll be a great client. One day that will work really well. One day I will phone that person. The important bit now is to pick up the phone or to go on Zoom or to send an invitation. Just do it. And those are the small victories. Just the fact that you've done it. Yeah, then go and have the biscuit or whatever you want to be.
Can I ask a question? Michael, do you think it's very interesting what you said there in terms of you doubled your sales target?
Yep.
And there is a paradigm which could say to us right now that actually there's no great opportunity for us right now. And some people are sitting on the beach, and what you're suggesting more is you're out there surfing, sitting on the beach, looking at the view and seeing what's happening. You're suggesting that you actively get out there. But do we need to shift that paradigm, that mental perspective that there's no opportunity here because everybody's in lockdown and everybody's, what I do is not important, and realize that actually this could be an opportunity where we really could help, and it could be a significant time of opportunity for now and the future?
Absolutely huge, Chris. One of the ways I do that is by, and very realistically, and I have stretch targets for the year. My first reaction in the reptilian brain was to reduce my target.
Yeah.
So, yeah, let's say $1 million a year target or whatever, and reduce it down to $500,000, cut myself some slack, which is what I said was important to start with. But immediately once I got through the first week, second week, third week, I decided that no, I'm actually going to take this. This is a huge opportunity. We're all in the same boat. And I've got to seek that opportunity. Therefore, I'm going to double the target. And I'm going to come up with strategies to achieve that doubling and share those with my clients so that they can go out there and double their turnovers. And that's the information they need. People do not want us to come and say, oh, whoa, why me? This is a crisis. I've even stopped that word crisis. I've stopped Corona. I've stopped talking about difficult times. This is the new brilliant opportunity. How are you going to use it? How are you going to get your sales team, your mindset, your production team? How are you going to get people to achieve impossible possible? And it's about an emotional buying language. It's about inspiring people to do things differently. I wrote an article the other day, which was about the Second World War. And the other one was about the Americans. During the Second World War, productivity in America tripled.
During the Second World War, is that right?
During the Second World War in America, productivity tripled. The minute the war was over, I think it took 8 weeks and it went back to just below average.
Wow. And what would you feel the real reason for that was, Michael?
I think we're getting it now. When people get over the panic, when people get over the fear aspect, more people drown because they panic. When you realize, I was talking to my partner today, living remotely, about, could we comfortably sew a leg back on? Could we comfortably sew an arm back on? Because for anybody to get out to save us out here, it's probably 3 days before the ambulance would get out. So we have to have a mindset of, if I chop my finger off, I can't rely on anyone coming to save my finger. I've got to do it myself. So the mindset here is, if you come back to Stockdale's, there is no time scale. No one's coming to save us. We either do it ourselves now, or we languish in the next 3 or 4 months and eventually come out, but we're behind the curve. And the opportunity at the moment is we can be stronger, we can be better, we can improve our client base. We can do all sorts of great things, whether you measure yourself on productivity through sales or new clients or production performance or whatever it may be. One of my companies, they were 69 people down in the whole company last week. Now, do we see 69 people as the opportunity to reduce performance on the production line, or did we turn it around? And to start with, it was, oh my goodness, we're probably going to have to. And by the end of the conversation, on this type of conversation, productivity is back up and improved. And we've still got 69 people off.
Wow.
I So I was talking with an IT director, or sorry, finance director of a large NHS hospital group, and last week, and what they were saying was their IT people were turning laptops around so people could work from home and setting them up. And I said to him, you know, how many laptops has each person managed to turn around in a day? And he said they're turning around at the moment for people 15 laptops each IT person per day. I said, how many would they turn around before this situation? He said they could manage about 3.
Fantastic, isn't it? Ingenuity.
You know,
yeah.
So there's an opportunity, isn't there? That suddenly the
huge.
Folks, you know, they're engaged, they're coming together. There's a problem, a challenge. We're working together as a team.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, how did the UK, you know, in the Second World War, you know, Churchill was an inspirational leader. He was a great leader during the war years, and yet he was sacked as the leader during peacetime. We've got a different mindset, haven't we? And I think it's fantastic. And we need to tap into this. We need to tell stories to our clients. We need to engage with them, and we need to be patient that they will start coming back together. They'll start listening to us. We've become this sort of expert. And I think salespeople and people who are engaging with clients need to learn these new skills very, very quickly. Become comfortable very, very quickly with engaging at a different level. I call it the emotional level, showing plenty of vulnerability and getting clients to talk about their vulnerability, and then moving forward into solutions. And there are loads of solutions.
Lovely. On the point of solutions, Michael, I think this is really powerful, actually. Michael, that's Michael Shepherd. Are you okay if we bring you in now? As we sort of volunteered a bit earlier on, perhaps we could just open up your mic, if that's all right. So, and if you're able to switch your camera on, Michael, it would be really nice if you can, so everyone can see you. Can you hear us, Michael, okay? Or can you speak back to us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. If you've got a camera there, you can switch on.
I think I do. I'm just trying to figure out on the control page where to turn the camera on. But
yeah, that's a good point. It's normally where it says next to the mute button. You've got a
yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Video. Lovely. We'll just give you a second to do that.
All I can see is audio. I can't see video.
Oh, okay. Let's not worry too much. Right, yeah. Michael, if you could just share a little bit about some experiences, because that's a really nice, positive story to share, actually. So the you've gone through would be fantastic.
Well, I think it actually started at CEO level, as a lot of these things do. Philosophy within Elitech, being a German organization, is actually quite family orientated. The sort of feel about the company is very much about a team pulling together. That's the kind of philosophy that they've always tried to foster, which is interesting because I've worked for North American organizations most of my life, and the experience with Elitech has been, well, initially it was quite startling, the difference. They want to be part of the family, and I'm thinking, wow, that's a little different from my experience with some North American organizations. But anyway, it's worked very well. But really, when the coronavirus started to really impact on us and obviously on our customers, we did a number of things. Obviously, we followed all the rules. We had everybody working from home. We had virtual teams set up within a short space of time. And by the way, I absolutely agree about the efficiencies associated with IT. It's amazing how quickly IT people get their heads around the requirement to enable office-based people to work from home, and it was stunning to see that over a period of maybe a couple of days, possibly 3 at the most. Firmly office-based people had been equipped with the conferencing tools and the hardware necessary to get them moving from home, and so that was very refreshing. I think that from a sales perspective, one of the things that was put in place early, it was prompted, I guess, by the CEO, but taken on board by really all of us within sales, was this. It was almost like it became a war front footing. You know, it was when we said about the counter attack on Corona, we called the meetings that. It was about, we're not going to be beaten. We're going to be, we're going to work our way through this. And what it started with, and it really plays to what Michael Romeling was saying, it started with a recognition of the fact that this was going to be deeply upsetting to a lot of our partners at the front end, trying to sell product as well as services to the market. And what we had to do was get right under their skin and understand what it was that was hurting them most aggressively, and what we could do to help them. It was about trying to get on their side and understand what it was we as people, but also as a company, could do with them and for them to help them through the situation. So it was very much about that sort of personal an understanding of how they were being personally impacted by things. We also looked internally at our own product developments, because we took the opportunity, if you like, to recognize that the demographics and certainly the drivers in the market really had changed and were likely to stay that way for quite some time. And it wasn't necessarily true, therefore, that the product portfolio that we were running with and the developments indeed that we had scheduled to bring to market were entirely relevant, that maybe some of them needed to be put to one side, others maybe needed to be brought forward. And in fact, one in particular came out of one of my own partners, I'm pleased to say, fed back in to the company for a particular product development that actually was really easy for us to do and opened up a market opportunity that we, prior to these meetings, had not considered as being core business. But all of a sudden, we've recognized that it potentially could be core business for us and could help our partners significantly. So we are forging ahead with that development. We're hopefully going to bring it to market within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And it will, without question, open up opportunities, I think, for us to sell. And we talked about quotas. We have not reduced our sales quotas within the organization.
Well done.
There is an expectation and an understanding that this is going to be a tough quarter. But what we are looking at confidently is that if we get our act together now, however long this lasts, if we get our act together now and we are partnering in true terms with our partners, getting a better understanding of the challenges they're facing, bringing products to market through them that actually enable them to sell more, which is at the end of the day what it's about, then there's no reason really why in the longer term we shouldn't be hitting the sorts of numbers that we originally planned for. So we certainly haven't reduced the sales targets. We're all being measured against those, no dilution, and it's a all for one and one for all type approach. We're doing it all together. So and these meetings that we're having on GoToMeeting every couple of weeks are pretty dynamic. We talk about the Corona counterattack. Yeah, it really is like that. I mean, the input from the sales guys is extremely positive.
So it's really interesting. So Boris, and bless him, obviously is in intensive care at the moment, and thank goodness he's looking as he's recovering. But obviously, the whole message at the moment is that basically it's a battle plan.
Yes,
all in it together to actually counteract this, and I think it's really interesting. The spin you've put on that. Michael Romeling, is there something you'd like to pick up on what Michael Shepherd has actually just said there as a point of interest?
No, I think it's fantastic. I think that's the right mindset and obviously well executed.
Just one other point I would make, and that is what we have found, coming back to the point you made quite rightly about just making calls, calling people, getting on side with them, is that it often used to be really difficult to nail busy people down because they were in the office being hammered by everything you could imagine. I'm finding, and I think my colleagues are finding now, it's a lot easier to actually locate people, to track them down, to talk to them, because they don't have those distractions that typically you'd find in the office. It's much easier to get conversations going with people, and they also, it's almost like it's refreshing for them to be able to unload sometimes, They don't get that flexibility when they're sitting in their office to be able to do that. And being able to really open up about how we could work together is very refreshing for them, I think. So yes, it's been a bit of an eye-opener. I was always one that said, I get in my car, I drive around, I meet people, that's how you do business. It's the whole sales thing. But no, I think that's changing now. Of course, I'm going to continue to do that when I can, but the whole idea, I think, of using media in a more appropriate way to keep things moving and moving forward dynamically is going to take over now.
Lovely, thank you, Michael. I think it's a really good point actually as well. We've noticed on LinkedIn, because obviously we run a lot of campaigns for our clients on LinkedIn, both for ourselves but also for our clients. The engagement rates on LinkedIn are very high at the moment, and you know, it's really interesting. And I think that's because people are at home, and it is another way of communication. I think it's so refreshing to see someone like yourself, Michael, who's been able to turn things around, you know, with your organisation in that way. Michael, if it's all right with you, I'm going to return you back to being an attendee again.
No problem.
So do stay on, and obviously Michael Rumling again, would love to get back in flow. So just bear with us. So Michael, you should just be able to carry on. Michael, thanks very much for your input on that one. So over to you, Michael. Michael Rumling.
Oh, right, back into the flow. Yes, yes.
For him to rejoin the call. What I will do, because I'm obviously conscious of time as well, just like to pick up on something Nigel said actually. In fact, Nigel, you and I were speaking earlier on today, weren't we? And had a great conversation. Nigel Davis is an amazing person. I won't share everything he said to me because some of it might have been said in confidence. But let's put it this way: through some amazing personal challenges he's faced over the last last 6 months or so, he's been able to completely reinvent himself. And we had the great pleasure of him joining in a session with us a few weeks ago. And what's really nice is to see, even though all this sort of negativity is sort of going on, Nigel's been able to repackage himself with what he's doing, and is really moving things on to another level. If any of you would like to, following from today, have some form of conversation, or would like to join in regularly into these events, I'm just going to share my screen just very fleetingly for a moment. So hopefully you guys will be able to see on the other end. If you want to rejoin these live stream events, we're running every week now for every Thursday. So literally, if you go to the events drop down, choose this one option here, the first one, and you'll notice you can book several weeks at a time, and that saves you having to re-register each time. And we've got different guests coming on each week. The other thing is that I think it's Tuesday next week, but every week we're running a business growth clinic, and that can be on a range of issues. So it's much smaller, much more intimate. We have a chance to focus on each one of you individually. And again, that you can actually book using the similar mechanism. And if any of you would like to possibly explore things a little bit further, you're very welcome to complete what we class the 12-pillar diagnostic questionnaire, which is under the Learn More part there. It takes about 6 or 7 minutes to complete, and I'll gladly have a detailed call with you afterwards, which again is completely free. And if you wanted to arrange a phone call, for example, if I go back to the home page again, so there we go. So if you scroll down, you can choose an option here, which is book a 15-minute discovery call. If you just want a quick call, we could do that as well. So just a quick summary for the events, just choose that option there, which is under events, live stream boardrooms, and the business growth clinics, the 12-pillar diagnostic questionnaire, and to learn more, that part there, and so on. So anyway, I think we'll get back to everyone just now. Just give me a second. Right, so I'll stop sharing my screen and we'll be back to, so Chris, just sort of picking up on a couple of things that Michael has said there, whilst hopefully he's going to rejoin. What points do you feel that Michael's mentioned that would be great to pick up on as far as today is concerned?
I think for me, I found that a hugely valuable conversation from Michael. And I think what it's done with myself actually is even more cemented that this is an opportunity right now, and that we can look to help people significantly during this period. We've got to be accessible now from the shock of what happened to being accessible to the current situation, maybe how we flex what we do. And it's actually, what has shifted in my mind as well was Wednesday and Thursday next week, I was planning to have a longer holiday. I've not had much holiday from the beginning of the week. I don't know what I'm going to really do within the confines of my house and garden. So Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to spend the days on the phone and just picking up the phone to people and calling them, plunging straight in, as Michael has suggested, because I think that will yield a pretty productive couple of days. So, it's impacted me and my behaviour actually to really get on in a focused way and make this this period very successful. So,
yeah, as a matter of interest, a quick question for everyone here with what's been going on. Has, first of all, today sort of helped to reassure and give people a lot more hope? And have you, up to this point, perhaps over the last week or so, has it almost been a case, it's been a bit like a rabbit in the headlights a little bit, that perhaps you've been so overwhelmed by what's sort of going on and the impact it's possibly having you on your business and possibly your family as well, that actually it's been really difficult to know which way to turn? If any of you want to sort of feedback on that, then obviously do feel free to do so. I know that Muriel's just typed a message in to say that Michael's trying to rejoin now. I think it's,
yeah, he is having a few problems, but he is trying again now. I've resent him the link.
Yeah, good. I think Michael lives in the most beautiful part near the Isle of Skye in Scotland. And I think we've got him back online again now. Michael, welcome back online. We can see you and hopefully hear you.
Wow.
Yeah. We were just saying, because you live in a lovely part of Scotland, you're blessed with local connectivity over there as well, aren't you? So.
Absolutely. It just disappeared. It all went just blank.
No. It's
good. No problems. I'm back. That's amazing.
Yeah, lovely.
It's also not to chewed your wires.
Sorry?
Very
It's
good.
an otter chewed your broadband wires.
An otter and a deer or something, yes. A gremlin.
So Michael, where do you feel is a good point to pick up from here on the areas? Because also we got through some really good points here, which is fantastic. What else would you like to add to this conversation?
Well, really, there's not a huge amount more apart from the detail of the strategy. I encourage people to do a deep dive on what we believe our clients need, and importantly, what we're going to provide for them in that particular time. I talked earlier on about helping them to become conscious that this is the time we need to develop people. This is the time we need to make changes. So the work we do on ourselves, I would encourage you to share that with your clients, share their experiences and get into their psyche. But it is about a deep dive. It is about, the reality of this could go on for quite a number of months and even come back. And give partnershiping. I think, Chris, you mentioned about partnershiping. So it's a whole new way, I believe, of get control of yourself to start with. Reward yourself, get control of yourself, reset your targets, do it now, decoy yourself, but do get deep into the strategy of what will make the difference, in terms of behavior, outlook, and mindset, and talk to people about mindset. There are a lot of people out there whom it is potentially business as normal, but they're not giving their salespeople or their teams any new strategies. And I'm happy to share those at another time into a deep dive, exactly what those would look like. But that's quite a detailed conversation.
Yeah, and Michael, thank you very much. It's something that I've noticed is really interesting as well, is that I think it's very important to take decisive action at this point. Because again, if you do go into yourself, as it were, and get rather overwhelmed by the problem, as it were, invariably one thing you can pretty well guarantee is if you don't take positive action to look outwards, is that you almost certainly will be in a much worse position than you are now. Because in real terms, it's about investing in yourself, investing in relationships you have with existing clients, look after those exceptionally well. I think I did see a very relevant point earlier on by trying to see who made it, is I think Andrew made a point earlier on about it's also a chance to go through your client list as well. If one or two clients are proving particularly troublesome as well, obviously the compassionate part always comes and you want to try and help where you can, but sometimes you also have to reevaluate your business a little bit too. But it is fundamentally about looking outwards, and it's about putting the oxygen mask on yourself. And what I mean by that is that in reality, if you look outwards and you start to invest in yourself, and also in particular to do with your marketing. And obviously there's a lot you can do online these days. You know, we've got some of the best tools in the toolbox with, you know, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. If LinkedIn, without doing any pay-per-click, you could get some amazing results on LinkedIn. The engagement rates are very high. But just going out there, continue to reach out, offer help and support. The good thing is you'll be positioning yourself very well, both now in terms of moving forwards and helping people and possibly getting more clients. But crucially, as the market starts to return, you'll be way ahead of everyone else. Because everyone else, a lot of other people are just going into themselves, and it's about looking outwards and seeing how you can make a difference. So
I mean, that's very, very important. Yeah, very important. One of the interesting little strategies which I can share with you is your customers, your clients, friends, people that you work with, is I'm asking everyone every day to introduce me to 3 new interesting people.
Nice.
And therefore, it's a very fast way. People who might be interested in talking about, people whom we can become curious for. And help and support. So my target for biscuits to, you know, this week has been everybody I speak to. I would like them to help me to get 3 new introductions, and it works if you ask people to give. So it's a great way of trebling the number of contacts you've got in a week.
Yeah, I think the other reason that people do it for you, Michael, is having got to know you over so well over a period of time, is you avert.
Demanding.
Sorry. You do.
Demanding.
Yeah, no, but you also you care. People respect you, and everything that goes with that. Also, I think the other interesting point with Michael, and I'm sure Michael doesn't mind me sharing this, is Michael is a master of actually leveraging himself. So from the very point that Michael and I got to know each other about 4 years ago, we ran a campaign for Michael for about a year to help him to get more clients, which we love doing. But straight away, you brought in a really good virtual assistant, didn't you? That's one of the first things you did. And we talked about strategies. You already had a lot of your own strategies. But in effect, what we were able to do is put in place a continual process of helping to create new opportunities for Michael.
Yep.
Michael then had still a brilliant VA to this day, same person, who actually out there is having the initial conversation, setting calls up with you. Michael is one of the... There's a slight competition here between Michael and Chris, I would have to say, is that I'm not sure which one is the smoothest of the two. So I think both of them. I think
Chris wins.
Yes. I've never held Putin's balls before. So sorry, I don't think I can't quite right. That's very cool.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's so important that they just look outwards. But Chris, what do you want to add to all of this here today?
I just think it's been a fantastic conversation, and I'm very encouraged talking to Michael actually to see that you see this as a real opportunity period, and I do. And if anything, I've having to work to get out of the way of myself to make sure that I am out there, not observing this from the beach, but I'm actually out there surfing and helping. So, I think also what I love too was your idea about how you split your time and ensure that it was productive, how each time you speak to somebody, you ask them for further introduction. And I completely agree. Why not contact people? They are more accessible than they've been for a long period of time. So I've gained a lot of hope from the conversation. I'm very grateful for it. I think it's been really useful. Yeah, really useful. Thank you.
No, likewise, very inspirational.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to make sure we've covered everyone's points today, if that's all right. So lovely. And what I do want to just acknowledge is Pradeep as well, by the way. Thank you very much for that. What we'll do, Pradeep is also an example of a very giving person. I've met Pradeep a couple of times now, and he's offered to actually help with some of these live streams. So thank you very much, Pradeep. It'd be great. I would suggest, if you want to do so, do join in these sessions together. But say they are completely free. It is about sharing value and building up relationships. Next week we've got Chris has very kindly agreed to again co-host this with me. We've got a guest by called Alex Smith next week. He's very typical millennial. He's 28 years old, very proud of it. In in 5 years' time, the millennials will unfortunately or unfortunately be replacing the majority in the workplace. Invariably, a lot of the old guards in some of these organizations will actually disappear because they'll retire, whatever the case might be, or retired off. And in many ways, that's also a very good thing, because whilst as we get older, we've got a lot more to contribute. The other side of it is that unfortunately, some of the worst practices that also exist in some of these larger organizations in particular are very much from people who've established in the old ways of doing things. And I think we've got a new breed of person coming through now, whether it's an entrepreneur as a business owner, who have got much more of a desire to give back, and are social entrepreneurs, or whether it's new people coming into the workplace who've got a lot of energy to give, and with new ideas, new inspiration, and we should be embracing that. I think also Alex feels very passionately about health, fitness, and mindset as well. So no doubt he'll probably want to share some tips around diets and exercise and everything like that, which obviously is very important, because there's a lot of us I find it's more difficult now to do the traditional things we'd have done to get some exercise. No doubt a lot of that be really valuable. So hopefully everyone here has found it very useful. I would like to give a big thanks to everyone for joining in today, and also for your questions. Do feel free to sign up for next week's one. As I say, the the business clinics, business growth clinics we now have each week. You're very welcome to engage with that as well. And it's about us giving back to you and you wanting to feel involved. So, and Michael Romling, very grateful to you for coming on, and Michael Shepherd for volunteering as well, along with Chris and Muriel. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Take care. So.